Three friends boarded Disney's Galactic Starcruiser to seek their destiny and emerged as heroes of the Halcyon.
Bright suns, and welcome to Heroes of the Halcyon, the best, and to the best of our knowledge only, Galactic Starcruiser Superfan podcast on the interwebs. I'm Galactic Starcruiser Superfan Martin, and with me are...
Superfan Drew.
And in another room 20 feet away from us, Superfan Christine.
Right.
Superfan Christine, she's had a rough month. She had 2 surgeries, and she's actually fallen ill right now. So she's going to be coming to us, texting us questions from another room away.
It's amazing how that technology worked. That worked really well.
Well, send some good vibes, everyone, to Christine's way. She will be back heroing next week.
Before we get started, we wanted to send a quick shout out to our patrons at patreon.com/heroes of the Halcyon. We recently had a couple more patrons join us. We really do appreciate your support because it does help us produce the content that we make for you guys.
Everyone is invited to the Patreon party. And speaking of party, we are like 1 month away from our Starcruiser Superfans Muster Meetup in Disney Springs.
We are very excited to see folks. We've had a number of creators donate items for our charity auction to benefit Make-A-Wish. We're actually talking to one of them today, which is really, really cool.
The creativity of these Starcruiser and Galaxy's Edge items that these creators are donating for this Make-A-Wish charity auction, sensational. It's going to absolutely blow some people's minds.
Yes, and what we got shown today by the person that we'll be interviewing for this is among the best things I've seen in a long time for the Galactic Starcruiser. Just epic stuff.
Well, on that subject, Drew, can you tell us a little bit about our special guest this week?
I can, Martin. Today we're talking with Ryan Street. Ryan is the proprietor of the iamGEEK Etsy web store. He actually makes and sells kyber crystals for the lightsabers that they sell at Savi's that are just spectacular. He sells kyber crystals that are themed after the Darksaber, the Spire, the Rebels Wolfpack. You just have to go on his Etsy store. Again, it's iamGEEK. He's also one of the hosts of the iamGEEK podcast and YouTube channel. And we were lucky enough to talk to him today because Ryan will be joining us, Martin, on our May 3rd and 4th voyage aboard Galactic Starcruiser. This is his first voyage, and one of the episodes that we've been looking forward to producing is what I like to call our Galactic Starcruiser 101 episode. So this was a chance for us to talk about the Starcruiser from the perspective of someone who's never gone before.
Well, let's go Starcruising with Ryan Street.
Well, Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me on. I'm very excited to be here.
I've been enjoying hearing your podcast and hearing your last episode where you were discussing the Starcruiser with folks. When you sent your idea to come and talk to us, we're like, oh, this is perfect. This will be a great opportunity to do a Galactic Starcruiser 101, so that'll be fun.
Thank you for listening to iamGEEK.
6 years, I mean, goodness gracious. Yeah. The only thing I've been doing for 6 years is breathing, so that's pretty impressive. So, Ryan, one question that we start off with everybody is we'd love to know, what is your Star Wars origin story?
I was born in 1978, so I pretty much grew up with Star Wars. The first one that I really remember seeing in the theaters is Return of the Jedi, which is probably my favorite because of that. But I grew up loving Star Wars before it was cool to love Star Wars, I guess, before it was cool to be a geek. And I had all the toys as a kid, just played Star Wars, loved Star Wars. Every time a movie was re-released into the theaters, I was the first one there. Every time when The Phantom Menace came out, I remember being on vacation in, I think, the Outer Banks. I had to find like a theater to go to, and it was like this little rinky-dink theater where I'm like, I'm going to go see it because it's out. Now that Disney has it and you get even more of it, it just keeps going. My wallet doesn't love it.
Neither does mine, yes.
Yeah, but I fell in love in Star Wars as a kid, and it's just been here all my life, basically.
It's kind of interesting. The three of us are all kind of original timeline, OG Star Wars kids from the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
And, something that's kind of interesting that we all kind of experienced is that there really was a Star Wars dead zone. I'd say between 87 to, 93, 94.
I can't believe you don't know this right away, Martin, because you must have been sitting there rocking in the corner that whole time.
Star Tours opened, I mean, the only thing that really was happening was the Timothy Zahn novels, which we all eagerly were at the bookstore opening, the day for. But it was interesting to see Star Wars be such a huge thing and then kind of shrink down and then just completely ramp up again to be what we know it is today. With so much content that there is out there. I mean, there's video games, there's movies, there's board games, there's what's your favorite Star Wars medium today?
Definitely the original films, but with what Disney's been doing with the TV shows, I've really been impressed. And right now, I mean, if you think about it, we have two. Well, it ended yesterday, but we've had two TV shows, an animated and a live action, going at the same time, The Mandalorian and The Bad Batch.
Yes,
and it's just been amazing. So I really like that sort of longer form that we've gotten, and where they can flesh stuff out. Amazing.
Have you looked at any of the comic books? Have you, read any of the books?
I haven't read any of the recent ones. I have two little kids, and they pretty much take up my entire time.
Yes.
But it's been cool because my son, he's 8 and he's fallen in love with Star Wars.
That's awesome.
So we've got to show him the movies. We haven't got to the TV shows yet, besides the animated ones. We just finished The Bad Batch today, and he's loving it. He's obsessed with clones. He wants everything that's a clone. Yeah, but I haven't got to do the comic books or the books just because time between that and making kyber crystals and podcasts, kids, family. Yeah, I don't get to read much.
I understand. The only thing I get to read sometimes is a cereal box in the morning, so I completely understand that. So
you actually mentioned an interesting thing there, that the kyber crystals that you make. Can you tell our audience a little bit about your Etsy store and how that started?
Yes, it started right before the pandemic, or during right when it started. Originally, I made these Darksaber sleeves that went on the blades for the Galaxy's Edge lightsabers, and that's sort of how I became popular in Galaxy's Edge. If you want to say that,
yeah,
they would be like, "We have pictures of you backstage," and I'm like, "Because I did something wrong." Like, no, we like your stuff. And then I just decided, let's figure out how these kyber crystals work. I started making them for myself, and then somebody saw them and said, "Can we buy them?" And I'm like, "Well, I've never really thought about selling them," but I started, and there was another kyber crystal maker that when he saw the first one I made, he goes, "Can I put it on my shop?" I said, "Sure, put it on your shop and see what happens." It immediately sold out. And then I put another one up, and then I started my own Etsy shop, just sort of to cut out the middleman, I guess. Mm-hmm. I love being creative. I love coming up with new designs. That's my favorite part. Making the same one over and over again get a little tedious, but just making new designs, which I have new ones out. It's iamGEEK shop on Etsy. You can see them all. I've got some that glow in the dark. I've started a new legacy series where every legacy saber that Disney owns or that Disney has put out, I'm going to make a kyber crystal for it. So if you have your legacy saber home, you can get the kyber crystal and put it beside it. But they all work in the Savi's lightsabers. I fell in love with Savi's the first time I went, and then may have gone back 3 more times. But I love making stuff. It's a way to get my creativity out and coming up with new things, really sort of bringing Star Wars lore to life a little bit.
What's the favorite one that you have that you sell?
Can I use the answer that they're all my children?
Yes, you can. I was going to make that joke. You beat me to it.
My first one was the Great Tree Crystal, which the story is that it came from the great tree that stood in the middle of the Jedi Temple. So that holds a place. I really love my wolf pack crystals because I love the Loth wolves. So they're shaped like the fangs of the Loth wolf. Some of my new ones that haven't came out yet, which you guys saw, I don't know. They're pretty cool. I'm sort of digging them.
Yeah, we'll tease the audience with that. So please stay tuned to our Instagram and Ryan's Instagram because they are truly spectacular. I can't wait for folks to see those.
Yeah, and these custom crystals aren't shaped like crystals, to tease it out. I mean, they're shaped like something completely different, and yet still work as crystals. Is that correct?
Yeah, they still work as crystals or with Savi's, and let's just say they would be fun to party with.
That's great. That's fabulous. Well, I'm gonna surprise you with a question that I forgot to put down in my prep sheet. But you also are a member of a podcast that's been running for 6 years. Can you tell us about your podcast?
It's called iamGEEK. You can find it wherever you listen to podcasts. On YouTube, it's iamGEEK Show. But we moved to Texas 6 or 7 years ago, and my wife and I, we moved for my wife's job, and we sort of switched roles. And when we moved here, we had one kid, and then we realized, oh, we're having a second kid. And I became a stay-at-home dad, homeschool dad. And I was like, I miss talking to adults.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
I'm like, I got to do something. And my brother's an animator. He's worked in movies. Now he's in video games. And we would talk about all this geeky stuff that we liked. And I said, why don't we just record this? We can have guests on, your fellow animators. I called my best friend from college and I said, why don't you join with us too? And it started out as a time that I can talk to adults about geeky things. That's my once a week time to talk to adults. That's not about poop or pee talk with my kids.
Right. Yeah.
Even though we probably get into some of that on the podcast.
I think I heard a little bit of it just in the last episode, actually. Yes.
Yeah, probably so. Probably so. So we just started talking about all these geeky things, and we'd have these guests on that are in the business, that you see their names go across the screen, but you never seen their face. And they talk about sort of what they geek out about and what they do. We love talking about Star Wars, Marvel, Disney, big Disney fans, DC some. It's just sort of three guys sitting around with guests talking about stuff we geek out about. And somehow we're still going after 6 years. And actually tomorrow, I don't know when this comes out, but tomorrow on Thursday, our new show comes out.
Okay.
Living with the Landspeeder, which will be sort of more narrowed down, where every week or every other week that we do the show, we will be taking a Disney attraction and Star Warsifying it, making it Star Wars.
Is Living with the Landspeeder going to be the first episode, or?
Yes,
Nice.
we will be living with the land on the first episode.
That's great.
And go from there. There's like 173 rides at least. So there's at least that many episodes in it right there.
Nice. That's
and then
fabulous.
you have restaurants and hotels and everything.
Well, let's kind of shift away from just the parks in general and kind of start getting specific about Galaxy's Edge itself. And, Ryan, how many times have you been to Batuu? Since
it opened, probably at least twice a year. Nice. It just seems to work out that way. We lived in Florida for 14 years. And of course, it opened up like after we moved. But between like conferences that we've gone to and other stuff, we've managed to be in the Orlando area at least twice a year. So I go at least twice a year and I love it. Love it, love it. I would live there if I could.
Having just returned from Batuu West, trust me, I completely understand. And speaking of that, have you been to both Batuu East and Batuu West?
I have got to go to Batuu West once.
Okay.
It was, we had a layover. We went to Alani for our 20th wedding anniversary.
Nice.
And on the way back, we had a layover in LA. And I'm like, we're going to Disneyland because we've never been before. It felt familiar, but a little strange.
Yes. Martin and Christine were about to punch me probably under the table because I'd be like, that tree line's different and that building seems closer and it feels just different. And yeah, they were very polite to me. So thanks, Martin. I appreciate that.
It really is amazing, given the engineering feat involved, how similar they are.
Oh, no question. No question.
But yeah, it was interesting that when you go in there with an eye for what's different between the two, that list actually starts kind of stacking up more than I realized. Ryan, do you have a favorite park between? I mean, I imagine your home park of East might take but do you have a favorite
between East and West? Yeah, I'm an East guy. I think just because I've been there so much, it just feels like home.
Sure.
West felt like I was in an alternate sort of universe because you walk from Frontierland and then you're on Galaxy's Edge. So it's just very strange.
Yes. I mean, they do a really good job, just like they do in East, of kind of segmenting it out. I haven't gone from Toy Story Land to Galaxy's Edge very often, so I have to go through that transition. I want to see that when we go back, actually. But one of the things about West that I just am stunned by is how you go under the railroad bridge, and it literally is the audio's change. It feels like the temperature changes. I mean, it's just crazy how different it is just to go through that bridge and make that difference from the land to the land.
The cool thing about the Toy Story Land into Galaxy's Edge for me is because in Toy Story Land, you're a toy. So to me, it was like being a kid again as a toy, going from all these toys into my Star Wars toys.
Nice.
So that's sort of, if you go in with that mindset, you're like, oh, this is pretty cool. It's like I'm a kid again with my Star Wars toys and they're life size.
And then the Imperial, the First Order officer yells at you as you walk by the echelon, and then you're like, oh, my toys never talk back to me. This is a little weird. But
my toys talk back to me. Hi, Vi.
Well, when did you first hear about the Galactic Starcruiser experience, Ryan?
The moment that it was announced, or actually before it was announced, I think there was rumors of it. And I remember when they first came out with something on Twitter. I haven't done this every day since, but at the beginning, I tweeted every day, is my room ready to the to the Disney? But then the price came out and I was like, oh, my room's not going to be ready for a long time.
Sure.
But I've been dreaming about it ever since they announced it.
So what actually convinced you to kind of pull the trigger, as they say in the cantina, and schedule your voyage for this May?
I started to look at how things were going, and I was wondering, how long is it going to last the way it is now? And I said, if I don't go soon, I may be going, and it may be a whole different experience. And I want to experience how it is now. And I saw a suite mate finder on Facebook, a group where you could just put your name out there. And I put my name out there because I'm friends with Sarah from Travel Agent Starcruiser fame. We found out, she came on our show and we found out her and her husband lived like 10, 15 minutes from me. So then we started hanging out and they were talking about going May 3rd. And I'm like, well, I've got to make this work. So I put my name out there, didn't know if it was going to happen. And then somebody found me and they made a group chat and it just all sort of happened. And then that guy couldn't go. So then I became sort of the leader of the group and had to fill in the spots. And I'm like, I guess this is happening. And I started selling more and more kyber crystals. So it's funny, I'm paying for the Starcruiser with money from my kyber crystals. So it works out.
I love that. And again, just to give our listeners a heads up, is we did a previous episode specifically on the Starcruiser Suitemate Finder, and it is a game changer. It takes something that's just out of reach for some folks into something that's absolutely something, okay, they can make that happen. And to a person, we've never heard anything but positive, glowing reviews from Starcruiser Suitemate Finder. So if you're thinking to yourself, boy, I wish I could do Galactic Starcruiser, but I'm not sure how, give it a look.
Oh, yeah.
You may be surprised.
I'm pretending it's a summer camp for adults, basically, because you don't know who you're staying with. You're just going to go in, get your bunk, and have fun.
So do you have a good mix of people, good different walks of life in your group, or all about the same?
We've been meeting through like Facebook Messenger, and then the other night we did a Zoom call with everybody.
Okay.
One person's from Alaska, one person's from New York. There's a couple of people from Florida, and then I'm from Texas. So it's a good mix. 3 of the people have been before, and then 2 of us haven't. This will be our first time.
Which you said you're going on the May 3rd cruise, the May 3rd and 4th? Oh, well, we'll see you there. We're very excited.
Sweet. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it'll be a good trip.
It's really fun to talk to folks who are prepping for their first voyage on Galactic Starcruiser, because it really, the anticipation and the buildup is a huge part of the fun. And it doesn't go away for subsequent voyages, but there's something really special about that first voyage. So, when Ryan, when you reached out to us about, let's do a Starcruiser 101 episode, what a fantastic idea for all of our listeners who are thinking about going on the Halcyon or prepping, whether it's on the May voyage or some other voyage, getting ready for that first voyage on the Halcyon.
Yeah, and we actually were thinking for a while that we've been meaning to do what I like to call our Galactic Starcruiser 101 episode. So Ryan, when you mentioned this, again, this is going to be a great way to talk about this. So I tell you what, we're going to talk about a couple of just base questions that I know you don't have, Ryan, because I know that you have prepped a little bit. But if anyone's listening to us who hasn't, I'm just going to go down through a first few couple. But Martin, what exactly is Disney's Galactic Starcruiser?
It's unlike anything else on Earth. It is truly an immersive experience where you live inside the Star Wars universe for what is it, 42 hours or so. Truly, you're given missions. You interact with characters, and really, it's as much interaction as you're comfortable with. Some folks want to absolutely get into every mission. They want to talk to the Sajas, who are the Force sensitive. They want to talk to the Resistance. They want to talk to the First Order. Some people want to talk to every single group that's on this ship, and there's a bunch of different storylines running through it. But when you actually get on board, you take a transport from Florida that transports you up to the Halcyon. Once you're there, you're inside Star Wars for the adventure of your life. There's nothing else like it on Earth.
Is there a pool there, Martin? Is there a pool at the hotel?
It's funny. We do get that question a lot, and it's a legitimate question. A lot of folks kind of look at Galactic Starcruiser and try to compare it to hotels. It just can't be. I mean, it's not a hotel. It's not. The fact that you sleep at Galactic Starcruiser is almost an afterthought of the experience. It truly is the missions, the interactions, and you have to sleep there in order to be ready for the next day's, activities right from the jump. So there isn't a pool, and you know what? You won't miss it.
No,
your kids won't miss it. But if that's something that's absolutely a must-have, go do a day at a hotel with a pool. But Galactic Starcruiser, it feels like a spaceship. So no swimming pool.
Well, cool. And Ryan, I'm curious because I know the conceit, and again, Ryan, I know you're familiar, but for folks who might have been just stumbled into our episode for the first time and listening to Heroes of the Halcyon, the way that Disney did it is very clever. They disguised the event of a space cruiser, a star cruiser, if you will, and it's themed very much like a cruise in space. So early on in the experience, when people were just hearing about it, there was a lot of negative press about, some of the first schedules that came out, the itineraries. Ryan, did you see any of that stuff back in the day, and did it concern you?
Well, I'm a big Star Wars geek, so I'm like, ooh, lightsaber training, all this, I'm
Sure,
good. Yes,
sure.
let's do all of this. Now, when the first videos came out, there was a moment where I was like,
Sure.
I don't know what to see. But then more videos came out. I'm like, I don't know, this is pretty cool. So there was a little concern when the very first commercial for it came out.
Sure.
The videos.
Right.
The guy from the Goldbergs was like, you remember that commercial?
Oh yes, very much so.
And you're sort of like, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But once the videos of people going came out, then it was like, okay, this is pretty cool.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, early on, the first itineraries, when you get your itinerary, you for our voyage on May 3rd, I'm sure you've looked at it on your phone, Ryan, in the Disney app. But it has things like space sector bingo or line dancing, or there's the analog of Newlyweds, the Newlywed game, right? Yeah, and this is. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been on a Disney cruise, Ryan. Have you ever, or a cruise in general? Well, so these are just the generic filler activities because they're trying to put something in for people. And that was very concerning for folks because, a cruise, why am I going to pay what I'm going to pay for a Star Cruiser? Yeah. And it's not cheap, as you mentioned, but why am I going to pay that? Well, that's all kind of a cover for what's really happening, which is the story that Martin has hinted at and the story that's happening that you can take part in. So all of this stuff that you see about space sector bingo or the card game tournaments, all of which you can do, but that's really kind of that's the surface level of this experience.
And like you said, Drew, I mean, there are going to be folks, whether it be, parents or just anyone that doesn't want to partake in the actual storylines. They do want to have the traditional ship activities. Sure. But again, without going into spoilers, kind of like Drew hinted, there's something else going on.
Always.
And let's just leave it at that. But no, that's there for a reason.
Well, Martin, I know Ryan's new to the experience, but Martin, why do you think it's so expensive?
Innovation.
Yeah.
I mean, truly, there's technology going on this ship that is nowhere else in the world. I mean, that when you go to like a movie set, for instance, if you watch them filming Star Wars, the set's in front of you. The set may be a little bit to the sides.
Sure.
But if you turn around, it's just a little piece. The Halcyon is every single place you look is legit. It never stops. You know, as we had a previous guest, TC, who really mentioned a beautiful phrase for it, that it's thick. It feels thick, and it does. I mean, the reality of it is surrounds you completely. It surrounds you, penetrates it, binds the experience together.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, Ray. It's no secret that Ray's got a quote unquote real working lightsaber. I mean, they advertise that heavily. It's amazing. It takes your breath away.
Yeah.
I don't want to go into some of the other special effects that they have going on there because again, I don't want to spoiler for folks that haven't been, but there's technology in play you don't see anywhere else. The Galactic Starcruiser is it, and frankly, innovation is expensive. And the other component of it really is it's a very limited experience. I mean, there's only 100 cabins on this thing. And that's if everyone goes to 100% occupancy. So
which they don't do ever, right? They keep a couple rooms empty.
Amortize this, over 5,000 people. It's amortized over a very small group because, really, I think Disney was very, very smart in doing this as a more intimate experience. Because if this was something that was going on with, 500 people, 1,000 people, you'd have very little time with each of these characters. So they really kind of figured out to give everyone this really personal experience. How many people can we realistically have on this thing? And it's not a big number. So that's where the cost comes in. The food is spectacular. It does include a trip down to, Galaxy's Edge and Hollywood Studios for a day. But to me, I have yet to hear anyone come off of the Halcyon and say that ridiculously expensive cruise wasn't worth it. Across the board, people say, yep, it's expensive. Every penny was worth it.
Yeah, and the other thing, too, that I would like to point out is it's also incredibly immersive. You mentioned that the set surrounds you 100% of the time. When you go to the refreshers, you're still in universe, you're still in theme. When you go into the bar, you're in theme. When you talk to any of the crew members in blue, you're still immersed in that world. And that also cost money, obviously. Ryan, when you saw the cost, you mentioned at first you're like, well, I got to wait a little while for that. But what did you think about the cost, Ryan, and how did you kind of come to peace with it?
Well, it's Disney, so everything's expensive. So you sort of, if you want to go, you sort of have to come to peace with it. But it was because they base it on 2 occupants in a room, and that you can't go one. I think that's what held back with me because I'm like, I can't take my whole family because it's just so expensive.
Right.
I don't have somebody else that wants to go right now, like a friend that's as big into Star Wars as me. So I got to the point where I'm like, I probably won't be going on this, which spoiled a lot for me because I watched all the videos then on YouTube of everybody going.
Okay.
Which I don't know if it actually spoils everything. Maybe there is stuff that I don't know about that I'll have something to look forward to. And that's when it was real and I was going, I'm like, man, I wish I hadn't watched those videos. I got to forget about those somehow now. But yeah, the price is steep.
It is steep, yes.
Even when they came out with the DVC thing where you could use points and stuff, I looked at it and I'm like I could go for 2 weeks to the Polynesian with the amount of points to go to 2 days. So it was hard. But that's why I really like the Sweet Mate Finder because you can literally divided up between 5 people.
And as we're recording this, actually, the news came out very recently that now there are discounts not just for DVC. There's also discounts for cast members, and there's also now discounts for annual pass holders. Martin, I'm proud that some of the predictions we made in our beginning of the year episodes, those are coming true. So that's good.
And again, for all the haters that immediately pile on and say, "Oh my gosh, discounts at Starcruiser," the exact same day they announced exact same discount at several Disney, World resorts, but a 30% discount on several cruises. It's not every single cruise. That doesn't apply to the very, very limited number of suites on the Starcruiser, but a 30% discount is a tremendous value for annual pass holders. But Ryan, something I'm really, really happy to kind of be able to tell you and everyone that's thinking about going on Galactic Starcruiser. Sure, it is optimal if you haven't seen all the videos, but I'm going to tell you, looking you right in the face right now virtually, it hasn't spoiled anything for you.
Oh, good.
You can know exactly what's coming, and it's going to absolutely thrill you beyond words when it happens anyway. It will absolutely transport you. You're going to forget that you knew what was going to happen. You're so in the moment. And that's how powerful the experience is. And that's how good these performers are, that you can know something's going to happen in the back of your head and still absolutely be taken with it when it does.
Are there counselors on board? Because I'm expecting there will be tears and there will be crying.
It's called the Sublight Lounge.
Right. Yes. Exactly. But you're going on, since you're going on the May 3rd and 4th voyage. There will be dozens of counselors who are there in the form of folks like Martin, Christine, and I, and all the other folks who are making this their second or third voyage. So it'll be good.
I really do think that that departure day is just going to be a train wreck, because all these people that really got to finally meet each other in person. It's never goodbye forever, but it's goodbye right now, and that's going to be, it's going to get misty. That's for sure.
So when we were putting this show together, Ryan, I asked you to come up with some questions for your own, and I think we're coming up on one of those questions that you had regarding costuming. What were you curious about?
I've heard so many people say you need this many costuming, you need this, you need that, you only need one, you need three, you need four, and I'm like, to the point, like, how many do I bring? Do I need all these different ones, or can I narrow it down? So yeah, that's one of my questions: is what do I need to pack?
For
this Starcruiser.
Well, the first thing I'll say is going in costume is certainly not a requirement. As we've said, we've certainly seen dads and moms and grandparents on the ship who, they were dressed in their Florida t-shirt and flip-flops, which there's zero problems with that, because in the Star Wars universe, there are tourists just like there are in this one. Having said that, I will say, and I'm sure Martin's going to echo me here in a second, is that going in costume and taking the opportunity to maybe put yourself out there and say, this time I'm going to wear at least one costume, and I'm going to dress up and maybe put on a Jedi robe if I want to go in that direction. Maybe I'm going to put on a First Order officer outfit or dress in odd slicing gear with blue acrylic on my head and things stuck to my head and so forth. You don't have to bring any costumes, but just at least one, I think, really will help you out. If you want to wear more than one costume, first of all, I'm going to applaud greatly. You absolutely can. I brought actually 4 costumes the first voyage, Martin. I'm sure you remember when we were assembling and getting all that squared away. And really, I only wore one because I realized before dinner, and I was like, I meant to go change into my formal dinner costume. Well, if I did that, I was going to miss out on some story experience that happened. But what do you think about costumes, Martin?
Like you said, I was going to echo everything. I'm just going to basically say what he said, is that don't get psyched out by all the videos of all these, the super star cruisers that come in with 4 or 5 outfits. That's awesome. We love those folks, but just bring one. You don't have to just bring one, but don't get daunted thinking you got to bring 3 or 4. Bring one and make it really awesome. If you got more time to put together another one, super. But don't let the fact that some people are going to be there with 3 or 4 stop you from bringing that one that you love. Because every time you want to go change, you're missing something. So that's the one thing that I would really, really encourage people to think about is how much time does it take to change outfits? Christine, superfan Christine. It takes her an immense amount of time to change outfits because of the makeup and the leku and the prosthetics and whatnot. But if it's just a quick change of a jacket or something, okay, sure, that's a different thing. But also you want to remember the weather. What season are you going in? Because frankly, Florida gets toasty and humid, and I will say that plan for the climate that you're going to be in. Will you die to wear this?
Right.
And that's an important thing. I mean, myself, like, my character, Jorg Sakul, I wear the same outfit both days. I mean, I've got a different flannel for, so I'm not wearing
You're sanitary. Sure.
for sanitary reasons, because I want the characters to be instantly recognize who I am right from the jump, and they will, and they do. They see me, and I have a consistent look throughout the experience. I mean, and again, my character's got a reason to do that, but don't let people with 3 or 4 deter you from just having one.
And again, if you want to have 3, that's super awesome. I know we often talk about Dano when he went on his voyage. He had at least 4, if not 5 costumes, and he made time to change in and out of them. And do you cosplay in general, or is this a new thing for you, Ryan?
Yes, I've already got my main outfit almost done, but my concern is, since it's 2 days, like, am I going to get so sweaty that it's going to be, reeking? I'm going. I'm not necessarily going as a character, but I saw the Jedi Survivor trailer and the new Cal Kestis outfit.
Yeah. Yes.
So I made the vest.
Oh,
and
nice.
So I have the vest. I 3D printed the armor piece. Got it all, the pants, the shirt already. So that will be my main costume. Awesome. I'm just trying to decide, do I bring something else, or do I just rock that the whole time?
Sure. Well, if you want to, yeah.
I would encourage you, if you do want to have kind of a change of outfit, have something light and breathable for Batu. Let that be your second outfit, because that way you're not going to get your first outfit kind of damp, as it were. There's moisture in this cave.
Right.
You don't want to be that person on the house. And so I think you've got a great idea, or just bring a change of undershirt or whatever, just to kind of keep the one main outfit fresh. But I think you're on the right track with having one main outfit and possibly a couple different things you can do to shift a look. But having one main, to me, is a really great idea for a first timer.
Well, and closely related to the costume question is another question you talked about, Ryan, is the concept of a character that goes around with your costume. I think you had a question about a character?
Yeah, like, how deep should I go into the character? Should it just be a name? Should I keep my own name? Should I just say what planet I'm from? Or, like, how deep do people go with this? Or how did the other characters on board interact with you?
Well, Drew and I can both tell you from experience is that our backstories are pages and pages and pages long. But something to remember, they don't want to listen to you talk for half an hour about your character. The characters on board the ship don't want to hear you talk for half an hour about your character. I'm really, really, really happy that I have got an incredibly detailed backstory. But that's mostly going to be in your head, and it informs your decisions as to how your character, if you are a character, how your character kind of progresses and what would your character do in this situation. I am of the mind, do take time to put together a backstory, but just understand it's mainly for you, not for everyone else on the ship.
So can I tell you guys just the gist of mine?
Please do.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Please.
Since I make kyber crystals, I'm thinking I'm a kyber crystal smuggler, and I'm going to have all my crystals in a pack with me. I'm sure people are going to call me Cal Kestis because I'm going to look like they'll probably call me Old Man Kestis because I'll look like Logan, like Old Man Logan.
Nice, yes.
Cal Kestis because I'm old, so I'm force sensitive, or I'm a force user too, and a kyber smuggler. So I plan on going to the different characters on board that you meet, the cast members, and saying, I sense something about you, and I'm going to have individual kyber crystals specific for them that I'm going to make that goes along with their story. I sense something. I've got something for you. This kyber is calling to you, and I've already started running through my head what they're going to look like.
Yep.
With the crystals, and sort of do that, sort of like in Harry Potter when they go and to choose the wand.
Yeah.
So this is going to be the kyber crystal that's calling out to you, and I'm going to use that as sort of how to interact with the characters on board. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes. That's dying. And frankly, I would actually have one thing to kind of ponder and is if you believe that people are going to have some kind of mental connection between you and Cal Kestis, have a response to that.
Oh, that's a
Build
great
that
point.
automatically build
Yes.
that in some way that you can reference. I met Cal Kestis. Cal Kestis was just have something where, if people kind of bring up Cal Kestis, you've got a response that you can kind of steer them in whatever direction you want them to go with that.
It would be sort of funny to do the old man Kestis.
That is great. That is awesome.
100%.
It would be sort of a gruff Kestis.
Gruff Kestis. I like that.
We've heard people say that you do want to have just at least an element of who you really are in your character. You build kyber crystals, legit kyber crystals.
Yeah, and that's literally what I was going to say, Martin, is you're building an element of yourself into this, which will help you. You won't have to remember what lie you're telling, right? So if you're already coming through with what you say, and then as far as whether you should use your name, this is something that two of our guests, Nick Tierce and Phil over at He Creative, both Phil and Nick mentioned there's something. Nick called it primal when a character calls you by your name, and I'm going to be Drew Vox for my next voyage for this third versus Zoran because I can't wait to hear them call me my name. So so that's something that we've heard as well, and I think that's really good advice.
I'm going to take a counterpoint to that actually, just to give people an alternative view. Is I don't want to do that. And I understand why they say that. And I do understand that some people really do like hearing their name. But to me, I actually like using a character name because the one thing that Starcruiser, gives you, it's total recall. Get a vacation from yourself. When I'm on the Starcruiser, I'm not Martin Smith. I am Jorg Sakul. And I love hearing the characters call me by this character that I've created, my own little piece of the Star Wars universe. So really, I can understand both sides of this, whether you use your own name or you don't. I'd say that if something that could inform this decision is the more time you spend building a character, if you do, that might steer that decision to lean into that. If you really kind of want to go in more as yourself, in Star Wars, I would absolutely, think you might want to go the other direction.
No, very good point. Very good point.
Have we completely confused you with this guy? You know what? Flip a coin. You can't go wrong either way.
Well, one thing that as far as how deep you have to go, just to put a button on this particular subject, how deep you have to go is just as deep as you want. Martin mentioned the character videos that we made before our second voyage. That's because we're crazy. we really were enjoying it. And honestly, the prep for the voyage is part of the fun. Are you finding that right now for yourself?
Yes and no. It's fun. And then because I was working on everything, and then I said, I'm going to put some new crystals out, and I've been slammed with orders.
Sure.
And I want to take crystals with me. So I'm like, on top of the costuming and everything, it's like, I got to make all these kyber crystals too.
Right.
So it's been sort of a little stressful. Like, we're coming up on the 30-day mark, right?
We are.
It's right here. Now, I do think that something else you're doing that I actually do recommend to folks is to have some kind of handout for, you can't have something for everyone necessarily, but to have something for cast, for crew, for some, passengers that really engage you in some special manner. I believe that's a good thing because it differentiates you. Anything you can do on this voyage to differentiate you from the 100+ other people that are, I'm not going to say vying for everyone's attention and competing, that's dramatic. But in a way, I mean, these characters have got limited time. What can you do to make yourself stand out? Anything like that helps. So the fact that you're going to have kyber crystals to give away, and again, I'm sure you're not going to be just passing them out like candy. You're going to make people interact with you for them. That's the trick. Don't just give away something. Make someone tell you a story. Make someone, that makes it more memorable for them rather than just something you hand them and they walk away.
And to add on to that, Martin, I will say, you don't have to make something. I mean, just don't get me wrong. It's great if you can. I didn't bring things to give out on my voyages, the last two that I was on, because my character wouldn't do that, frankly. My character was really kind of in it for himself and was guided towards a specific mission. He wasn't the kind of person who was going to hand out trinkets. And my experience was not affected by that at all. So don't feel pressured that you have to do that, but it can be fun to add to the immersion and to be really a part of that world and giving out something, your kyber crystals. Martin, I know you gave out Porg keychains from George Sakul's A Fabulous Epic Film. So these are fun things, but don't feel like you have to do this stuff.
Along that line is, some people go into this experience head first. Some people kind of want to tiptoe, put their toe in the water. Something that we're asked that, Ryan, I'm kind of curious if you've heard the same thing is, do I need to be an extrovert to have this be a successful experience? And Ryan, what are your thoughts on what level do you think you kind of need to be at to have this be successful?
I'm pretty much a total introvert, even though I do a podcast and stuff.
Yeah, sure.
Stuff like that. So when it comes to going new places with new people, it takes a little while for me to get into it. So that has been one of my questions. Like, if you're not in the face of the characters on board, are you going to miss out because you're not an in the face type of person? Or should you just like go all out anyways and just try to deal with the anxiety later?
Well, I'm going to answer that two ways. The real answer is, you don't have to. If you just sit back and kind of watch the story happen around you, you don't have to go up to somebody and in their face. If you want, when you see a character, just follow them around. You don't have to engage with them, but just follow them, because you'll see that there's a lot of people that follow every single one of the characters that happen on the ship. And they're used to having people follow them around. They won't think you're creepers. They won't think, what the hell is that guy doing back there? That old man Kestis fellow. I don't trust him. But if you do want to be in their face, or if you do want to engage, here's the best part about this cruise. I don't think there's any place on the planet where these people are better trained to interact with you at the level that you bring. If you're shy, and if they ask you a question and you're shy, they know how to back off. They've done this hundreds of times, and they'll know just to. But if at the same time, if you're like, you know what, screw it, I don't know these people. Old man Kestis, he doesn't mess around. Sammy, I'm coming for you. He'll take it and he'll run with it. And you'll be amazed at the level that they're able to come to your level of introversion or extroversion.
Cool. And I will say, we have talked with folks that really did just sit back and watch deliberately and had an amazing time, because there is so much going on that if people watching is of any interest to you, you will never find a more exciting, interesting, diverse set of adventures going on in front of you. But here's a tip. This is the best tip that, if you're nervous, because, as extroverted as I appear to be a lot of the times, in certain situations, I do kind of like, what do I do here? Here's the tip. If you want to approach a character on Starcruiser and you're just not sure, what do I say? Let me just tell you exactly. Walk right up, introduce yourself, and say these magic words. How can I help? And they will give you some story about what's going on. I guarantee you, every one of those characters needs help in some fashion all the time. So if you want to get them talking to you, hi, I'm George Sakul. There's a lot going on here. How can I help you? Magic words, that it'll open up every door imaginable for you.
To build on that tip too, if it's hard for you to get out of your shell and it's hard for you to kind of push past your levels of introversion, like I said, at the very least, just follow somebody around, because you'll see magic happen. And my guess is they'll interact with you as you follow them around and meet you again where you're at, and you'll have an amazing time.
Another tip along this same line is, for the more introverted person that doesn't necessarily want to speak directly, scan everything with your data band, everything, because there's a lot of different adventures that unlock if you scan this, if you scan that. You didn't talk to anyone, You went and just did it on your own to kind of start the party. So if there's, when you get your data band, there's going to be symbols all around the house, and you'll see them. They're not hidden at all. Scan everything, and that'll unlock some doors just automatically for you as well.
Well, let's talk about arrival. This is something that I think is speaking of tips, Martin. One thing that I think is interesting to talk about is kind of logistically. What time, Martin, do you think people should arrive for their voyage?
I am always of the mind earlier rather than later. I mean, your time on the Halcyon is so brief, comparatively. I mean, it's less than 48 hours. So to me, every single hour counts. So you can start lining up at, I believe it's 11 o'clock. They start letting people in as early as 1. I am always of the mind, every time I go to Starcruiser, I'm going to arrive on site right around the noon time frame. And, I don't want to sit out there in the sun. They got nice covers now, and they've definitely improved the arrival experience since they first opened. But myself, I am going to be there at noon just to kind of get myself primed and ready. When they open those doors, I want to be one of the first ones on the ship, because one of the magic pieces is when those shuttle doors open and you walk onto the atrium. It's a magical moment, but it's even better if there's fewer people on the ship at that moment. So when you walk onto that ship and you're one of just a few people on board already, chef's kiss. You have the run of the place for an hour or so. You can explore the bridge. You can explore the Chandrilla Collection gift shop without everything being sold out. You can explore in a much freer way than you will be able to 3 or 4 hours later when there's a bunch of people on board. So one logistical thing to add on to that, though, what's your costume like? If you're wearing a costume, if your costume is heavy, if it's got a helmet, Christine's got full latex leku on that are really hot and kind of uncomfortable. That might kind of guide your decision as to how early do you really want to arrive,
or if you're going to show up in costume at all. Have you guys talked about that in your group, Brian?
I think we've all pretty much said we're all showing up in costume.
Nice.
So we can just go right in and start right up.
It's funny. We've heard from several folks that say the opposite, but I personally will go down swinging that if you're coming in costume and it's not logistically a huge problem, you show up ready to play. The moment you walk off that shuttle into the Halcyon, you're there. You don't have to worry about the logistics of getting into the costume. You're in Star Wars from the jump.
You brought up a thing about the souvenirs being sold out. When should you go in the shop and buy stuff?
I recommend that you go right away. I also recommend that if you've done some research on Facebook, you might see some of the items that are not frequently in stock. You'll see some of the things that maybe are difficult to get. You might want to talk to the people at the front desk and say, hey, what here is not liable to be here in 2 hours? Because guess what? They'll tell you, and that might clue you into kind of the things that you might have your eye on. And if there's something there, you might say, hey, if I don't buy this now, is it liable to be here in 2 or 3 hours? They'll let you know. They will transport the merchandise for you. Martin, you had this done. You know a little bit more about this than I do.
100%. If you buy things inside the Starcruiser, the Chandrilla Collection store, they'll take it to your room. So you don't have to waste the time to take it there. I mean, they could even, bag everything up at the end and ship it somewhere. That's a whole different discussion, but I agree with Drew completely. One of the very, very first stops is if there's anything you specifically want from the Chandrilla Collection, you go there immediately. It's literally the minute you get off the shuttle, it's to your right and around the corner. Can't miss it. The Sabak chips set is notoriously difficult to get. If there's any of the outfits, you want to make sure they have your size. I'm of the mind, get that out of the way early.
Yeah.
Have them send it to your room so you don't have to worry about it, because even though the Chandrilla Collection store is now open on day 3, which was a fantastic move for Disney to do. It wasn't always there, but it's kind of subject to what's there. Now, one thing I can say from personal experience that's really fantastic is if something's not in stock, check back again later that day or the next day. They do rotate the stock and keep restocking things throughout the cruise. So if you show up on day 1 and something's out of stock, day 2 or 3, that situation may be different. So if there's something that you really, really want, don't give up on it if it's not in stock right away.
I've had a spot on my shelf over here reserved since I put up this shelf for the lightsaber.
Nice.
Because I make kyber crystals. I love lightsabers. So is that something that usually sells out, or is this like, because my other thought is we will be on Batuu May 4th when probably stuff is going to be dropping, new stuff. Will we have to wait in line for all that stuff? Or because I know last year you had to like sign up to get in line. Will we be able to do that from the Starcruiser? That's another thing to think about.
Well, that is a great question. I don't think we know the answer to that, Martin. Have you heard any details?
You're not able to get in, like, for if they're selling new merchandise on Batuu, for instance. That's something you got to just be down on Batuu early, and that is a fantastic. Because on May the 4th, I do believe we are going to be seeing significant new merch.
Oh, yeah.
The possibility of, I strongly believe we're going to be seeing new merch. So am I going to be on the first transport from the Starcruiser down? 100% I am. And that's the nice thing that, Drew, you've mentioned this in previous shows, and you're 100% correct, is that if you're one of the first shuttles down from the Halcyon down to Batuu, you will beat the crowds that have to come from the front gate all the way back. So you do have an edge that way. Drew, you're 100% correct on that fact.
It'll be interesting to see with this cruise, since we're going to have so many experienced Star Cruisers on board. I suspect that those first few crews, on previous voyages, Ryan, the first shuttle down was easy to get. Most people were still sleeping or eating breakfast. I don't think that will be probably the case in our voyage coming up.
Now, while we're on the subject of Batuu, we cannot get around, that there are technically there are restrictions on what you can wear in Batuu. Full helmets are a no-go on Batuu. They have to be able to see your face. Now, the technical Disney rule by the letter of the law is that only half of your face can be painted.
50%, just to
50% of your face can be painted.
It doesn't literally have to be half, but no more than 50%, right?
And we can say from personal experience, Christine's character, Captain Maleficent, has got full face paint, and she has gotten on Batuu both times without any question whatsoever. But we are always prepared that if anyone from Disney, whether it be on the Halcyon or on Batuu, raises a hand and says that's not in compliance, we're not going to fight. We're not going to be those people that gives the cast a hard time. They're just doing their job. So just everyone that's listening to this, please be aware there is an official guideline that says you can only have half, 50% face painted. Mm-hmm. In reality, is that often different? Yeah, we found that to be the case, but you cannot know for certain what's going to be approved until you show up to get on the shuttle and they give you a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
Has your group talked about costuming in Batuu, Ryan?
Briefly.
Yeah.
I know that it's going to be hot because it's Florida. So that's one thing that I'm thinking about, because I want to do my costume on Batuu, but I'm trying to think, what shirt should I wear underneath this vest that I've made? And what pants should I wear?
Sure.
I wear pants and stuff, because it's going to be.
Please wear pants.
You know what I mean? Versus shorts, because it's Florida.
Well,
but
old man Kestis might be a skirt kind of guy. I mean, that makes sense.
Well, I am going to say something that I don't hear a lot of people talk about when in Starcruiser discussions is something that this may guide your decision. But Ryan, I can say that walking around Batuu in your full Star Wars outfit, you feel like a million credits. Yeah. Like it's an experience. Walking around the Starcruiser is amazing, but walking around Batuu in your full costume, you feel so part of this bigger thing like Drew and I and Christine have mentioned, people are going to constantly ask you, where's the bathroom? You do have to identify yourself as not a Disney cast member if someone wants to take a picture with you. That is one restriction that they were very, very straightforward with us. Our first voyage is they were like, this is fine. You can go on planet like this, but no taking pictures with people at all. And we were like, okay, that's the rule. That's fine. So we just very politely told people, we can't take photos. It's a restriction, and people were fine. But the second time, they just said, make sure people know you aren't a Disney representative. You do not work for the park, which I understand. So we were able to just, when someone said, can I take a picture with you? And it was mostly Christine rather than Drew and myself. She just simply had to say, just please understand, I'm not a, official, Galaxy's Edge character. And then nobody cares. They just want the photo with the cool looking character. So, follow the guidelines. You can't go wrong. But I would encourage you, if you've got a costume you're proud of that makes you feel like you're really part of the universe, wear it on Batu.
So Ryan, you mentioned you've seen some spoilers and you've watched a lot of the videos that are out there on YouTube. And don't worry, at the end of this video, I do have a nebulizer. I'll just point it at your face and you'll forget everything. Don't worry. Are you wondering what to do when you get on board the ship, or do you have a plan of attack?
Maybe a little bit of plan. I guess the big question is, when you get on the ship, when does it all start? Like with when do the characters come out?
Sure,
when does that start?
Well, yeah, so I can tell you that when you first get on board the ship, there is an amazing lunch that's downstairs in the Chandrilla Crown of Corellia. That's the cafeteria area. And it's a fabulous lunch buffet. I highly, highly recommend it. The actual face cast, the story crew, they don't come on board until 4 o'clock. The first thing you really see with the characters officially is at 4 o'clock during the muster that's on your itinerary. I can tell you, without spoiling anything, don't worry, that there are other opportunities that are available to you before that happens, but they won't be maybe character interaction experiences. So from that 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock range, that's a great time to explore the ship, great time to get your bearings, hit the merch shop, talk to the crew members in blue who are available to answer any questions you might have. At the very beginning, there's 2 or 3 experiences that I can't recommend enough. One that's relatively new is called the Way of the Saja, which is where you'll actually be introduced to the Saja, which are characters that are on board the ship that kind of serve as representatives of the Force. They're not Jedi because they're not Jedi, but they know about the Force, and they will tell you a little bit about it. And the Way of the Saja is offered a few times. Martin, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's offered more than once.
I believe that's correct, and frankly, I'm glad you mentioned this because the Saja, and again, I hesitate to call them paths, but if we're gonna use that broad term, the Saja path is notoriously difficult to get on. So this kind of is a way to jump into that pool with the Saja and kind of get on their radar. So I'm glad you're bringing that up.
Yeah, and let's put a pin in the path question. We'll come to that in a second. But the Way of the Saja is one experience that's great. The other thing that's offered, I know at least 2 or 3 times, maybe even more, is a tour of the ship. And during that tour of the ship, you're going to learn the story behind the creation of the Halcyon. You're going to learn some of the artifacts that are on board, and that information might prove useful to you. It may not, I don't know. But it's fun to actually learn about what this piece of memorabilia is or what this is outside the Sublight Lounge. And you're going to hear it from crew members who know the story backwards and forwards and will have all sorts of answers to any kind of questions you have. Then at 4 o'clock, when the story starts, again, no spoilers, don't worry, but when the muster happens, that's when you're going to start seeing, oh, that guy, well, since he's Lieutenant Croy, I bet he's in the First Order because he'll identify himself as such. And you'll start to understand maybe what archetypes those characters are. And Martin, this is where I'll talk about the paths. And this is something that the Heroes of the Halcyon, not that we've been guilty of talking about the paths, but this is a story, and there are different ways through that story. Some might call them paths. But this is where you kind of start saying, you know what, I like that Sammy guy, or Captain Keevan is something interesting. I'd like to subscribe to her newsletter. Let me go ask her how I can help. This is ways for you to find your way through the story. Have you been, do you kind of have something in mind on what you're looking to do when you go on your trip, Ryan?
Yeah, it's hard. I think the smuggler sort of path looks might be fun.
Nice.
I mean, that was a question that I had was, is there, without giving too many spoilers, is there something that I should look out for that be like, you gotta make sure you do this or you go this way?
Well, it depends on how spoilery you want to get. Martin, do you have anything light that's not spoilery that you might be able to answer that question?
I can say that if we were to just take the broad number of we've talked to hundreds and hundreds of people that have been on Galactic Starcruiser, and the smuggler, again, quote unquote, path is extremely popular. The people respond to it. I mean, the characters in it are fascinating. A lot of people love the smuggler route, but the catch-all to that is it's always very, very crowded comparatively because people want it. I mean, I haven't done a single thing on Galactic Starcruiser that I've regretted. I have never touched anything in 2 voyages so far. I've never touched really anything first order. So I'm specifically aiming for that this time, just so I get a little bit of a flavor that I haven't had before. But I am going to have to force myself to do that because I love these other characters and these other scenarios so much. It's going to be a moment of crisis internally that go this way rather than that way. But just enjoy the moment. And when I say that, I say enjoy every moment. I would encourage people to stop thinking of it in terms of paths and start thinking of it in terms of moments.
Yeah.
Because you can have moments with several different characters whose quote unquote paths aren't really complementary, and it still works. I mean, you can have a moment with a first order officer and a moment with a resistance officer and have them both be meaningful, even if the paths aren't, correlated. So I really encourage people, you're a leaf on the wind. If I'm going to steal a line from a different sci-fi franchise, enjoy where the wind takes you. Now, this is specifically advice for folks that have watched videos and do kind of have a real intimate knowledge of what the experience contains. If there's a specific element that you really want to participate in, talk to a crew member. They do have the ability to kind of move people around within the system. They can't put everybody in everything. They can't. There are limits to what they can do.
There's capacity.
But I can tell you, I have had times when I've asked to be shifted from here to there, and they've been able to do it.
Right.
So if there's a specific moment you've seen, talk to one of the blue crew. There's literally a space inside the atrium, guest services. It's someone is always there, and they're there for that express purpose of helping people kind of get where they want to be. But do understand, and this is for everyone that's thinking about going, is some of the experiences are capped by the number. There's a certain number of people that can be in them, and that's it. So there are certain story moments that everyone wants to be in, and it's just not possible for that to happen. So you do have to kind of start making trade-offs at the end of the experiences. Everything kind of starts going towards the conclusions. You're not going to be able to see every single ending to every single storyline most of the time. But if there's something you really, really know happens that you really, really want to be there for, don't be shy.
Yep.
Talk to a blue crew and do it early, because the longer you wait, the more chance they won't be able to do anything about it.
I do know that there is a certain thing that you get at Oga's that I want, that I know is a mission. So that's one thing I want to know. How do I do that?
Well, the good news is you'll find out, because it's that one's easy. So don't even sweat that too much. You'll be in good shape. And for folks who are listening who want to know about it, feel free to drop us a line at heroesofthehalcyon@gmail.com. We can steer you as well, but you'll be in good shape for that one.
With that one, I've got good news. There is you're correct. There is a story component that takes place with Ogas. You don't need a reservation to have this piece activate. You just need to show up and speak with someone. You'll figure it out when you're there. Trust me. But I will recommend going to Oga's when you're on your excursion. It's spectacular.
It's fabulous.
But for folks that don't have, you're not locked out. Simply go up to the guest services in front of Oga's and mention you'll have the beautiful little Halcyon pin on. They'll know who you are, and I will argue that they're on the lookout for those folks.
So we're approaching the 30-day mark. What can we expect with the Play app and everything on the 30-day mark?
That's actually a really great question. Is that right now we're within that special window of when we can buy exclusive Starcruiser merchandise on Shop Disney. There's that, for a specific amount of time before and for 30 days after your voyage, you can buy merchandise on Shop Disney that people that don't have an active Starcruiser reservation cannot get. So I would encourage folks, just go to Shop Disney if you're within I believe it's 60 days ahead of your voyage, 90 days ahead of your voyage, but if you're within 30 days of your voyage, certainly go onto Shop Disney, type in Galactic Starcruiser, and you will see things listed that you have not seen before. That's going to happen. Really not a lot happens until a couple days ahead of your cruise is when your schedule really gets finalized. You get assigned a specific, bridge training. You get assigned a specific lightsaber training. And that's when it kind of starts getting fun to, really put in your head, this is how your days are going to go. I'm going to kind of piggyback off of something that Drew said as well about day one. If you're one of the first ones on the ship, that's going to be a really good time to consider for if you're getting that CSL photo experience. It's $400. It's tremendously expensive, but the photos are absolutely to die for. Like it's a two-person crew. One of them's the camera, one of them's the lighting. It's sensational. I encourage folks that if you are going to splurge and get that CSL photo experience, a really good time to do it is between that 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. on day one, when you're not missing any story moments at all.
Or on day two. On day two is a great time to do that between 1 and 4 as well. Yeah.
Right. Exactly right. When most folks are still on the planet. But I tell folks that if you are going to do the CSL photo experience, try to do it away from the times when real big story beats are happening. So Drew, you're 100%, between 1 and 4, day 1 or 2 is really a prime time.
I think the only other thing is I have food allergies. When do I do that? Call them before you get there and tell them everything, or wait till you get there? You
can wait till you get there. We've gone on a cruise. Christine has a food allergy. Then when we went on our second cruise, we traveled with our Patty, our friend named Patty. Patty is a vegetarian. So at the very first meal system, don't be shy about just saying, hey, can I talk to a chef about my food allergies or the special concern I have? And the chef will come out, or somebody who represents that crew, and they will guide you, and they will say, you can have this, you can have this, you can have this. When your server comes to the table, just inform them of the specific allergies that you might have when they come when you're not doing the buffet, and let them know what the allergies are, and they will come back. You will be amazed at how awesome that treatment is. And you'll have some of the best food. You'll have other people at the table who are like, maybe I want what he's having. So,
well, Ryan, this has been such a fun conversation, and getting people prepped for their first voyage is such an exciting time. And if folks wanted to find you out on the interwebs, where would they do that?
Well, you can find me in a few places. For iamGEEK Show on all social media. You can join our group, iamGroup, on Facebook, and where we talk about fun stuff. And then on YouTube, iamGEEK Show. And then for the new podcast, Living with the Landspeeder, pretty much everywhere you listen, watch, social media will be. And then iamGEEK Shop on Etsy if you want some kyber crystals or you just want to check them out. I'd love to hear what people think about them. So check that out, iamGEEK Shop on Etsy.
I'm literally scrolling through the store as we speak. So when you see a big order come through right now, that's
well, there's probably already been a few orders from Christine.
We cannot wait to see you on board the Halcyon. Just a month to go.
Thank you guys for having me on. It's been a blast, and I can't wait to see you on the Halcyon.
And that's another spectacular conversation in the book. That was super fun.
I cannot wait to meet Ryan on the Halcyon. It's kind of funny. After almost a year of doing Heroes of the Halcyon episodes every week, you start thinking about Starcruiser at such a high level that it's really fun to kind of just take it right back down to where we were a year ago.
Oh, yeah.
And ask ourselves those questions, Joe. Is there a pool? Do you need a costume? Really kind of think it, see Starcruiser through the eyes of a first-time Voyager. Incredible fun.
Absolutely. And you mentioned seeing it through the eyes of a first-time visitor. I'm so excited that we actually get to hang out with Ryan. And on the last day, we actually get to say, did we tell you or did we tell you?
I'm going to tell you that if he's not absolutely blown away, I'm going to be really crushed.
That's right. And you know what? There's several T-shirts. If he's not blown away, I'll eat one of those shirts. That'll be good.
Well, I think that shirt is awfully safe. I mean, as I'm recording this, wait, hold on. As we're recording this outro, I'm literally scrolling through Ryan's store on Etsy, and there is just some really unusually cool and original pieces on this. You really need to check this store out.
When I got my lightsaber, one of the things that I wanted was a stand. And one of the items that he's selling is a beautiful lightsaber display stand that lets you put out your kyber crystals, put your lightsaber up. Just gorgeous. And again, all these kyber crystals, they're just amazing.
Well, thanks so much to Ryan Street for reaching out to us with this amazing episode idea. And if folks wanted to get in touch with us with their episode ideas, their stories aboard the Halcyon, well, Christine, from a past episode, how would they do that?
On Instagram, you can find us on Heroes of the Halcyon. On Twitter, you can find us at Halcyon_Heroes. And we love hearing about your stories from going on Galactic Starcruiser. So feel free to email us at heroesofthehalcyon@gmail.com.
Well, the Halcyon always needs heroes, so thanks for tuning in to another episode of Heroes of the Halcyon. It's always fun to shoot the poodoo with all the Starcruiser superfans out there. So until next episode, it's our honor. Let's raise our glasses with the Halcyon toast.
Tabooey Tay!